Okay, it is January 11th, 2021, and we're going to go ahead and start the Facilities and Transportation Board Committee meeting. And let's start by introducing the committee members. Kevin Strobel.
Bucky Scott.
Kristen Thompson.
Greg Cooper.
Julia Olson.
Steve Anderson. Rob Hurley.
Okay, let's go ahead and get right into the agenda. It's maintenance, records, and planning projects.
I actually made a typo when I did this. I actually added this twice on here. It's the first item and the last item. So we'll just come under the first item.
Okay.
Okay. So the maintenance record and planning project. So basically, we have still not emptied out the old facilities office located in 44 Beavertown. There are still schematics, hundreds of schematics that need to be brought over to this building and placed in an area here where they can be managed and kept. As you know, we have
Paper schematics?
yes, the regular blueprints that
Okay.
show the buildings and grounds, civil, electrical, mechanical, the whole non-structural, roofing. So the old office still is full of these materials. They need to be brought here and stored properly, but they need to be stored in a manner that is conducive with the work that we do. A lot of times, especially myself, not knowing these buildings quite as well as I'd like yet, we go through the process of digging out the schematics for a certain building or plan to see where we have wire runs and whatnot, how our water streams, roof issues, how to diagnose, how to design any structural issues, whatnot. So the files are not stored electronically for any of the buildings, which is an option. It really should be.
That's what I wrote down, right?
Yeah. It really should be stored electronically, which means we would have to get architectural or engineering firm a copy of all the schematics, have them scanned either into flash drives or onto a shared drive where they can be accessed that way. Most of the schematics are still in relatively good shape. They were taken care of over time. But it's more than that. We also have many HVAC units. We have mechanical units. We have fire systems. We have everything that we maintain and are responsible for. Cafeteria equipment. All that information is stored in manuals on relatively different stuff, including CDs and flash drives located in various places throughout the district. They really need to be brought together and stored in one central area where the manuals and schematics and whatnot are accessible and viewable to the people that need them. This came up, just recently with the completion of the gymnasium HVAC. It's come up for other different projects, and it's even come up for roof leaks. And it's the constant run to Beavertown, pick up the schematics, bring them back, try to find them, and store them somewhere on the site here. So what I'm proposing, and I think that's why I wrote this twice, there is an unused area in the photocopy center, second floor, the E3 metal shop back years and years ago. That area still has storage of materials that was for facilities use. It would not mean doing any major reconstruction, just relocation of a lot of equipment. Maybe putting up some new lights so it's a brighter area and it's functional. But this area would be a perfect space to be utilized to store all those manuals and store the schematics in an organized system so that people can reference them and get them when they need them. That would be the first step, would be to set that up and organize it. I estimate just thinking about the project, I haven't really, other than one attachment that I gave to the board to look at, included purchasing some high rack blueprint storage pull-out where you can actually stick the blueprint in an organized fashion, alphabetically by building, it just makes sense that this stuff is stored, since this is really our only record. If it isn't stored properly, or if it gets lost, you lose track of the buildings, how they're run.
Redoing them is massively expensive. If you can get them redone.
Yeah.
Some cases you can't.
So, I mean, I think this is a viable, cheap solution. Looking at the overall cost, I mean, electronically, obviously, it's going to cost a little more to have someone do that. I'm sure we could arrange to maybe even work that into a future project. But for right now, I'm being tasked with getting the rest of the stuff out of 2144 and bringing it to the high school. And I do have grounds personnel making those moves and SSC to do that, but I want to put it on the board agenda to talk about it, bring it to an open discussion.
Do you know how many of these you need? Because this is one of those no-brainer situations where we've got to have a place to put them. They're an asset, unbelievable asset when you're trying to do this kind of work. And so to lose one could be thousands of dollars. And so the first step would be that. The second one would be, I don't know if we have to go to an engineering firm to have these copies put in place, but once you have them organized, you can get copies made, even if it's $5,000, it's cheaper than one set of drawings. And so I don't know how you can work without that. Plus, you'd be able to access them through the cloud. You wouldn't have to run back over there for them. In some cases you do. You got to put the paper down and kind of look through it. That's not quite as easy on a machine.
I think that there's future for River Rock to do testing in the area where the facilities maintenance office used to be. So I need to make that move rather quickly before springtime, because I think that's when they want to utilize that space. So I'd be looking to move on this in February or March, if possible.
I think we can move on the metal storage, like a place to store them and hang them properly right away, and then get a price tag on getting them electronically done. I don't know how they're not electronically stored already. A fire, water, your entire
It should really be a
building
shared drive. In my
100%.
opinion, you should be able to, like if you're working on a particular HVAC unit, you need to know how the electric runs. You can pull that particular schematic up for the building. Some of those schematics in my office were 500 pages of complete.
Do you have an idea of how many of these you need? Do you have an idea? I don't think it's really that big of a...
It's at least 150 different rolls of schematics, and I would venture to guess it's more like 225 to 250. And I'm looking at these racks, and you can purchase, it really depends on how much you want to spend. It gives you, and this is just one website, there are plenty of others out there. And we solicit a deal, have someone come in and
This is one of them ones where, again, I just think we need to be presented a price for getting them, and it needs to be a purchase decision.
it really should be forward. For the future of the school district, if you would have a calamity of some sort, and have this information available, it could be potentially dangerous.
Yeah, I agree.
And most of the companies, especially when you're talking about a building like this one, is close to 60 years old in this area. You're not going to find the architectural firm or anyone else still in business more than likely that will be able to provide you backup schematics. So it's just kind of a no-brainer. We've got to do it at some point.
So right now, you're just, notifying us that you're gonna have to move everything from, Weaverton Road to here, and just kind of taking the temperature of the board about, whether you should go forward and price these items out. We don't have a package to discuss, okay? Okay.
Didn't want to start doing it without
That's
approval.
fair.
The next item on the agenda is some of the safety issues. I'm on the safety committee with the chair, which is Greg Miller. So we meet monthly and discuss relevant safety issues throughout the district. Ways we can improve things during the last discussion. And the reason I'm bringing it forward is because I would assume this fall under my purview and not so much the safety committee. The eye wash stations continue to be a problem. A lot of the eye wash stations are mechanical rooms. So we have two different types. We have some that are just refilled standalone units that utilize just the fluid that's inside that we pull the caps off. And, you stick your eyes in there and it washes out stuff. Other ones we have are hard pipe units that are actually stationary, can't be relocated. The problem is that a lot of the mechanical rooms right now are stuffed to the gills with desks and whatnot. It leads us into the whole issue we discussed about that. And my concern is with this is if we don't free these areas up, what if you have an employee that needs one and you can't get to it? So it has come up on the safety committee. It's something that the woman we walk around with who does our liability risk assessments has brought to our attention several times. The first aid kits within the buildings weren't being maintained for quite a few years, so we're getting back into that as well. Another issue that was just brought to me today by the nurse was that some of our Sharpie containers and whatnot we don't have a contract currently. My impression was when I came here that was being done building by building by the building administrators and not so much the facilities department. My impression today now is that will fall into my purview as well.
What was that?
For like Sharpie containers and science room chemicals and disposal of those kind of items.
Like KPAs? Like a KPA? Like they have, it's a yellow box that says all the...
Right, exactly.
Do we have a company that comes in? We used to have a company that would come in and provide all that for us. And
I believe they
it
did
was a fee
one
we
time.
paid $1,200 a year, and they came in quarterly and updated all of our yellow boxes in all our buildings. And
Right. I thought that was falling under the building principals purview, not mine. So, it really falls on me to make sure that that's happening, and it hasn't been. So I need to pursue contracts. So I'm going to be bringing that back to the board next month. So I didn't want to blindside you with, not bringing to your attention that was going to come up. So I put it on the agenda for that tonight.
Do you know when the last time we had sharps picked up?
According to the school nurse at the high school today, who I was talking with about it, it's been quite a while.
Okay.
Maybe not since the beginning of the school year, near the end of the last school year. So somewhere in there it's popped, and they're starting to get, and we don't have a lot of need for them.
Right.
Obviously we got to take the proper steps to make sure that this stuff is safe for the students and the staff. So I want to get on that. I just didn't want to throw it out there without letting you guys know. The last item on the agenda, since I put that one on twice, is the chiller tower repair estimate. So I did hand out a few. I didn't know how many copies to make. Next time I'll make sure I bring them out. Sorry about that in the back over there. So after a lengthy discussion with several different vendors and a look at what we could possibly do with this chiller tower crisis that we fell into at the beginning of the school year. If you remember, basically what happened was we had a power outage at the high school. When the power was restored, the chiller would not restart for a variety of reasons. Some of it was neglect, some of it was the age of the unit, some of it was mechanical issues with the design of the unit. So it was very difficult to figure this out in a way, in a manner and fashion that would be cost effective for the school. Also encompasses the long-term planning for the building, and obviously cost controls put in place where we're not wasting or spending excess money that we don't have in order to do stuff. So after many discussions with many different vendors and a couple engineers from Avapco, I think what I put before you tonight, which is a proposal to just fix what we have on site for now. I believe in speaking with these vendors and looking at the inside of this unit, we could probably get another 7 to 10 years out of the current design if we put the money out to do this in this manner rather than trying to replace it or move the unit now.
this is one unit?
It's one unit, and basically it's your main chiller tower. So basically we use chilled water to create the air conditioning system in the building. That chilled water has to go through a chiller tower that has sleeves like a radiator on the car. The water comes through and it cools off using fans and then it's recycled back through the building. And then the chilled air is, the chilled water is blown into the rooms while the hot water is returned to the chiller tower where it's cooled down and recycled. In this case, what's basically happened is when the power shut down, the main pump for the chiller tower shut down. At that time when it restarted, back in the early or late summer, early fall, there was a medium that's on the inside of that tank. And it's a set of bafflings, and they're actually made out of like a vinyl plastic. And that medium actually decomposed over time because of many reasons. One, our water softener system wasn't working at the high school for years. It is now working. It was never properly maintained. And I'm not trying to point the finger at anybody. It just wasn't, for whatever reason. It could have been a misunderstanding that someone didn't fully understand how to maintain it. Certainly that won't be the case going forward. We will make sure that this gets maintained, but the bottom line is that baffling system pretty much collapsed on the inside of that tower. It caused the lines to clog with so much media, plastics and whatnot, that the water could not circulate. When that water circulation stopped, we thought, well, we'll isolate the tower, and then we could bring in this other unit and just supplement, which we did. It was an expensive cost. I think it was like $19,000 for the first month and quite a few thousand for the extra month that we had to have it in order until we got into the fall. This also caused a pipe burst that occurred in the main hallway in the A section near the library. Because that hot water had nowhere to go to dissipate that was returning from the units and were still running, we had to leave the fans on. It actually caused the pipe to split in one section, causing rooms to flood right before school started, like a week before school started. So we did everything we could as fast as possible to reopen the building and provide air conditioning, especially during this time of COVID. But it was a disaster to say the least. Where we are now is we're proposing to replace the baffling system on the inside, rehab it, isolate and install lockouts and bleeders into the system because that system was never piped originally, engineering-wise, to have those. If we had had them originally, we could have isolated that, disconnected the pipe, and then drained the system down remotely, getting all that media out of there and then restarted our own tower. We could not do that with the current design that we have. So the proposal put in front of you basically outlines that. It would be for the contractor to come in, rehab the inside of that unit, put new baffling inside, replace the bearings on a couple of fans, because while they're there, we might as well remove them, so that we know they'll last another 7 years. Add additional draining outlets inside the piping system, and then refunction everything, clean it out properly, and basically push the reset button for another 7 years on the unit. I think that price versus the price of replacing it or relocating it at this time is like 1/5 of what the total cost would be to do that project. And I think you can never say it's reasonable when you're talking about that kind of money, but it's, these buildings need air conditioning. There's nothing I can do to get away from that. There's going to be a cost in order to do it. And I think this is the most...
It's 30% of a new unit, and you can get another 10, even if you get 5 out of it, what's the length?
And I guarantee we'll get 7 and maybe 10, which is a
Makes
lot.
sense.
I think it's the way you have it.
I have 3 questions.
Shoot.
In the scope of work that we have listed here, one of the items is clean up side panels and address with ZRC. What does ZRC mean?
The ZRC,
Yeah.
it's the Zerd Recovery. I'm not going to say this right. Clean up the side panel address with ZRC. So ZRC is the cleaning agent that they're going to use in order to get rid of the mold and the media
Okay.
inside that.
Okay.
I had to find it on there because at first I'm looking at the Brentwood.
No, and then that's my next question. And so the film media that we're talking about that has degraded needs to be replaced. So is that insulating material? Is it a filtering material, or is it just a transport material?
It's like a vinyl material. It actually looks like,
No, I mean, its function.
oh, it's
Is
functioning.
it an insulator, a filter, or a transport material?
Basically what it does is if you were to look at the inside of that on a cut, so let's say you're looking at the side of the unit, your cooling fins are at the top, where your fan unit comes down and blows into it. And then below that you have these baffles, and they look like sheets of vinyl almost, and they're relayed back and forth. And what that does is it takes the water that's coming back and it runs it across these like grates, like on an old washboard. back
So
and
it gives
forth.
it more surface area to touch.
Exactly, so it
going down.
cools quicker as
Okay.
it comes back down, and then it hits the tank, and then your pump's located at the bottom of the tank, and that sucks it back into the building, and then back through the
Okay.
system.
All right, so I agree, that's important.
It's very important.
And
Yes.
then the third thing is that, have we spoken to anybody at Berkshire Mechanical to see if they would still honor their price? Because it says here that they would only have held the price for 15 days without talking to them, and it's been more than 15 days.
They'll
So
honor.
they would, okay.
Yeah. They better.
Okay.
They
I want to be
better
the
honor.
second one to hear about it, they
Well,
don't.
they do a lot of work for us.
So is this something you want to bring up in the voting meeting, committee meeting? Any other questions? I mean, I think it's something that is required to do, right? No?
Yeah.
Yeah, this will go on the agenda for the end of, this will go be put on the
End of the agenda.
committee of the whole to be approved on the.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Yep.
I agree.
So obviously, I mean, the scope of the project, looking at what they're going to do, would take less than 3 weeks to complete. Maybe even quicker than that. So I would say you want to move on it by end of March to get it in progress so that when we do our switch over to cooling season, late April, early May, that it's up and running prior to that. And I hope I explained that right. Like, if you have any other questions that I can't answer,
It sounds plausible.
I Googled it and it says something about highest quality zinc rich coatings. I don't know. He started to lose plausibility on that one. No, I'm kidding.
I think in the last couple of meetings, I didn't do a good job of explaining what was going on, so I wanted to make sure that I got it.
Well, we went, it was disaster, and then there was some recovery, and then there was, not really sure, and now the emergency's gone, so we were okay, and so I think it's time to address it so we can get there before the other things. I think everybody agrees with that, so good.
I don't really have anything else to add other than that this year is a particular challenge for everybody in facilities and contracted services. We're doing the best we can. We haven't seen several or major problems. There's still a lot of problems with these buildings. Even today, I lost 6 RTU units, went down at the middle school in the middle of the day because we did some work and fixed some contactors on some units that hadn't run in years, and it threw the system off, but they were able to get everything back up and running by 6 tonight, so that's back up. I just want to say it's been a very challenging year. We're doing the best we can. I know collectively the transportation folks, custodial folks, and Halter's meetings has done a phenomenal job through this all. And I know I come here and I say that almost every meeting, but I don't want them to be forgotten for the commitment that they've made to the district. I'm very proud of what we've done so far this year. I expect bigger and better things over the summer. So hopefully by next fall when the school gets off, we'll be in a lot better position.
It's important, I think, since I've been part of the board, I've been on the facilities meetings since the beginning, and I don't remember having such a span where we're talking about the cleaning services being okay. I mean, there's always going to be challenges with everything that we do, but that's just a good thing to hear. It really is.
I just wanted to say that because I think we're doing a
Good thing to hear.
phenomenal
We,
job. Through the
it
circumstances.
was just the opposite for years. So,
That's all I had, but thank you for your time.
anybody else have anything? That'll close our meeting up then.
Thank you.